they call me Crazy Jack. And I think crazy is good. We are crazy, but we're not stupid.
You keep pushing because you believe in yourself and in your vision.
Stay hungry, stay foolish.
The Creativity Podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Creativity Podcast, the podcast for entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs who want to make a difference in the world. Today we have a French entrepreneur, startupper, Guillaume Moubeche, CEO and co-founder of Lemlist, a cold email software tool platform. Welcome, Guillaume, on the Creativity Podcast.
Thanks a lot for having me, Budsy. I'm really happy to be here.
With pleasure, with pleasure. So I am super glad you're here. You recently had a lot of press coverage, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, of course. But just for the story, we actually gave a Tedx together, and we didn't give a Tedx together because I was suspected to have COVID because I was in contact with people that had the COVID, and I couldn't go to this location where they filmed the TEDx. And so I did a TED Talk on a video, and you did a TED Talk live, and it was very interesting. I saw yours, so I recommend it to people who want to watch it. It was in English, right?
Yeah, it was in English.
Okay, so we will put all the details as well. And I discovered you had a really interesting path. So we'll discuss about that in a minute as well. And I want to say beyond this $30 million story that is all around, but it is still interesting. So you're also going to talk about that. So first of all, tell us already what you are doing in a couple of words today.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the CEO and co-founder of Lemlist, which is a tool that helps a sales team get more meetings with their prospects. In 3 years, we grow from 0 to 10,000 plus customers worldwide, and we're growing exponentially. Our team is about 35 people, and most of our customers are actually based in the US.
Wow. Well, so you answered 5 of my questions already. So that's great. That's perfect. Wow, that's cool. Very cool. And how long did that take to come to that place? When did you start it? When was it founded?
We started back in 2018. So it's about 3 years ago.
Wow. That's great. So what's the concept of Lemlist for people who don't know anything about sales and cold emailing and things like that?
Essentially, when you go on LinkedIn, when you have your own business, or if you work in a sales team or marketing team, your goal is to find customers. So ideally, you're going to go on LinkedIn, try to find those people, and you want to reach out to them. So with Lemlist, you can basically automate and personalize the outreach to more people, and you will you'll be able to automate essentially the follow-ups. So for example, when you send a message to someone, there is, let's say, a 15% chance that they will answer, but eventually you need to follow up in order to increase the chances of getting a meeting and meeting that person. So Lemlist is a tool that will help you to do that.
Okay. And isn't it... I always have difficulty with the concept of cold mailing, right? Because I think annoying the person. Of course, it has to be qualified. It has to be the right target. Do you get that a lot? People being afraid of that?
Yeah, I think people are especially, I think in France, people are scared to talk to other people. But in the end, it's like when you have your own company, or when you're selling a service or a product, you're selling a solution to a problem. So not reaching out to people who might benefit from your solution is basically like stopping willing to help other people. So I think it's something you really have to cross. So it's a false belief that you have within yourself, but it's the same thing as networking. So for example, whenever you contacted me, we didn't know each other. You said, okay, you had your icebreaker was, hey, AG, we're going to be together at the TEDx. So obviously we had something in common, and it was easy for you to break the ice and start building a relationships. But actually, it's the same thing with prospecting. You reach out to people because you think that your product or service is relevant to them, and instead of trying to sell your product or service, what you should do is start building relationships. So for example, let's say you are, I don't know, selling like a tool that sells contacts with influencers, like marketing influencers. What you could do is basically like reach out to brands, and then you can ask them, you know, like questions such as, hey, I just saw you were building that really cool t-shirt brand. I've just noticed that your presence on Instagram is not that big. Have you thought about doing some influencer marketing? I'd love to exchange on things that have been working well for some of our customers. That's like relationship building. You're trying to bring value to help someone else, and then it's a great way to start a relationship.
Yeah, it's not the stupid idea we have in mind, you know, buy this
exactly.
buy this can of soda, it's good for you, and you're like, what? I like this approach, and definitely it is, I think, the best approach possible. And people have a lot of stereotypes about selling and marketing as well, I think, and it's changing a lot. So that's great. I think your tool is amazing. And for those who missed this crazy story of you refusing the $30 million deal, it's dollars, right? It's not
Yeah,
euros.
it was dollars. Yeah.
Can you tell to our listeners what happened in a few words?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, like in the early days of Lemlist, I remember, because I was really in the startup ecosystem in Paris, and every time I had chat with friends, their first question was like, okay, how much fund have you raised with your startup?
Yeah, definitely.
And then I was like, we haven't raised any. And then they were like, oh, in that case, you don't have a startup. So basically with everything like this, you kind of feel like shit for not raising. So in the early days, I decided like to start raising capitals from investors. But after a month of getting rejected because we didn't have revenue, we didn't have a product and everything, I received like a message from one of our customers that was saying that he closed, I think it was a $20,000 deal. And then basically I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do, you know, like this is why I started. My why is basically to help people succeed. So after growing Lemlist and you know, like reaching a couple of millions in revenue in the first 18 months, I was like, okay, now it's important for me to show also like the world that the success of your company shouldn't be linked to the amount of money you raise. And because, you know, like if you look at the media, you're gonna have essentially companies saying like, yeah, they have raised 30 million, 50 million, 100 million, etc. But we never talk, we always associate it with the success, when however, we never talk about the revenue they're making, their happiness of their employee. Like everything is centered around fundraising, when actually most companies who are fundraising are failing after a couple of years. So my goal was essentially to showcase this. So I have like a YouTube channel that I started, I think it was at the end of 2020. So about like 5 months ago or 6 months ago. And then I decided, okay, let's say that let's announce publicly that we will do a fundraising. That way I can showcase, you know, to people the step-by-step process on how to do it. But if we receive an offer, we would say no, just to show the world that the success of a company shouldn't be linked to the amount of money you raised.
Oh, you announced it before?
Yeah, we announced live. No, we didn't announce that we will be saying no, because
of course, because investors wouldn't
otherwise no investors would have made the offer. But we knew it from the start. So the first offer we received actually was a $20 million offer at a $100 million valuation.
Not enough.
Not enough. Yeah, exactly. No, it was already huge. But the fact that we announced that we received that offer, it created a lot of FOMO, so fear of missing out. And we had even more investors reaching out to us. And another investor offered us $30 million. But what was quite crazy with this offer is, so if for those of you who don't really know like the ecosystem of investors, essentially you have VC, which are like the venture capitalists. And their goal is whenever they invest in the company is that the money they give goes directly to the company bank account. It's not for the founders. And however, we had a new offer from a private equity fund. And what they told us is that $15 million would go to the company and $15 million would go directly into our pockets. And we could keep the control of the company, meaning that...
That is rare.
Yeah, yeah. That was really crazy. and and initially for us, it was easy to say no to VC because we don't need the money to keep growing, etc., etc. But when you know that you can take some cash out, it's really, really like, yeah, it's really stressful because you're like,
Yeah, I
damn,
guess. How did
you
you?
know.
That's something I want to know. How did you live it? How did you personally, Guillaume, live that moment?
Yeah, it's crazy, it's because you're thinking that we are three co-founders with and we each own a third of the company, so it was essentially $5 million each. So with $5 million, you can stop working, like, it's enough to stop working and everything. So I didn't sleep well,
Wow.
let's
Yeah.
say. And then I thought, like, why exactly am I doing this? And again, it always come, to the
Purpose,
reason
yeah.
why you're doing things. I come from a family that didn't earn a lot of money. My parents didn't go to university. They didn't get their baccalaureate, so like French high school
Oh,
degree.
what jobs did they do?
My mom, she works as a like fonctionnaire, so it's like basically how would I translate that?
Yeah, for the government.
Yeah,
Kind of.
government, but yeah, not a high position.
Okay.
And my dad is a designer, so it's like yeah, working doing design from for restaurant or things like that.
Okay.
So essentially, like like in the early days when I started Lemlist, I thought that my motivation was also about getting more money, being richer, etc. But then you reach a certain point. I mean, for us, it was crazy. Like in less than 3 years, we were reaching $4 and $5 million dollar ARR. So it's like a lot of money. And then I realized that money is not what makes me happy. What drives me is really like when I know that I've helped people get the same freedom I have running my business. And once you know that, I think it's important that, okay, for me, what matters is to do the things I like and I love. And I know that if someone is buying shares in our company as in investing, he will have or she will have a word to say on my decisions and on what I want to do. And this is something I don't want. So we discussed with my co-founders, Yann and Francois, and we were all aligned on that vision. So we just said, fuck it. Let's keep growing Lemlist and let's do things that we love.
And don't you think sometimes it's hard to get connected to that purpose, to that why, when you don't have the money and you're a little bit craving for it? Do you think sometimes it's better to, I mean, there is not a universal answer for that, but sometimes it's a bit easier to go after the money, get you rich first somehow, and then it's easier to reconnect to that purpose? What do you think about that statement?
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like we say something that says, I knew what I wanted until I got it. And for me, it's exactly that. It's like I knew I wanted to be rich until I started like earning a lot of money with Lemlist. Because right now, like I'm getting like really, really good salary. We're getting like dividends each year, which are huge. I can get a flat, buy a flat, have my house, spend the money the way I want, travel as I want. But it's not, it's not what makes me happy in the end. But before that, I didn't know about it, because I had never been rich in my entire life. Like my parents, we didn't grow up with a lot of money. I didn't grow up with a lot of stuff. I never lack of anything, and I had a good education and everything. But still, but now that I have it, as you said, once you don't have it, I think, like, for example, if in the early days of Lemlist, someone would have offered us maybe like just 1 or 2 million. I think in the early days, we said if someone offered us like $3 million for the company itself, not just investing, but just for the company, we would have sold it, But now it's like,
That's hard to understand for people who are not entrepreneurs, or for people who are struggling, and they would kill for $1 million. But I totally get your position. It's evolving. The why is evolving, and I believe. So my company is not making millions yet, but
yet that's the important part.
it's the important word. But I reached certain levels, and every time I reached a level, there is some kind of in French, un appel d'air. You know what I mean? Like like you're
You
on
want
top
more.
of some kind of one mountain, and you're
Yeah.
like, well, what do I do now? Some kind of a tiny mini depression.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, so I need another mountain now, another why, and this is evolving. So I think it's also important for people to understand that, because from the exterior, it can. I think there would be a lot of judgment towards you. You 29. Oh, he makes millions, and now he's saying no to 30 minutes. It can be misinterpreted.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, and so don't you think you're shooting yourself in a bullet in the foot because of that? Because do you think later you will need fundings, or you say no, we don't want to dilute our equity and
I
stuff like
think
that?
we really want to keep the full control of the company. I'm not saying no,
Mhm.
like as a definitive no, because I think
Yeah,
things
we
are
never know.
evolving really quickly. And then again, I think like ambition, it's like appetite. It goes by eating. So for example, like I think if you grew up in a family that is like extremely wealthy, extremely rich, your ambition by definition would be higher, because you see around you successful people, then success becomes like something attainable, or it's something that you feel like that you can reach. And I think like with the company, it's exactly the same. We started small with not a lot of ambition, and step by step we have more and more in ambition. And to answer your question regarding like the fundings and everything, actually we had I'm having like much more I would say like quality conversation with VCs now than I had in the past, because a lot of them are reaching out to me and they've digged into Lemlist and say, we love your message. Our job as an investor is to say no to people reaching out to us. So 99% of the time we're saying no. And most of them are sending me pitch deck where they don't understand that being profitable is something essential for a business, and that it's much easier for an investor to invest in a profitable business rather than in a business that just has an idea. And essentially, like a lot of investors like that. And yeah, so it's quite interesting.
I like that. I like that approach. I had a question that is related to it, and at the same time a bit off. Because you are startup, and I know there is an official definition of startups, but when do you draw the line between a startup and a small business? Because we imagine the startup with this exponential growth evolution, and Lemlist is definitely a startup in that sense. But what would you say is the main difference for our listeners out there who and how did you approach it with Lemlist? Did it matter or not at all?
For me, yeah, I think like a startup needs to have two things. It needs to be like something different. So, for example, if you come to a market that exists already, you need to do something different to showcase that you're kind of like disrupting an industry. And on the other end, I think it's linked to the growth rate and the type of business model. So if your business model changes a lot or can change like rapidly, you are a startup and not a small business. And if you are growing really, really, really fast, then also you can be called a startup. But in the end, for me, it's more like okay, if you want to be cool, say you have a startup. If you want to be old school, say you have a SMB or medium business. But in the end, you have like tons of medium businesses that are doing like I don't know, like hundreds of millions of dollars each year, and no
Yeah.
one knows about them, and they
For
are like
sure.
really happy making tons of money, and that's it.
Yeah, I have clients that have like things you never heard before, like stuff that are in your house that they build, and you're like, oh, you're making that kind of plastic.
And you're a
But
billionaire. Cool.
yeah, exactly. I just sell white plastic pieces, and you're like, wow, I didn't know there was a business about it. But yeah, anyways, I want to get back on you and your path. And I saw in your Tedx that you have traveled before, that you studied business in HEC. Tell us a little bit about your early 20s and this moment of your life.
Yeah, so essentially, I never had the chance to travel with my parents because we simply didn't have the money. So I initially I'm a chemical engineer, which has nothing to
Wow.
do with what I'm doing now. But I lived in Scotland for a bit, where I was studying medicinal chemistry. So we were doing a lot of drug synthesis. And then after that, when I came back to Paris and graduated, I had worked in quite a lot of companies, and I did pretty much every student job you can do, just to save enough for flight tickets to do like a world tour. And my goal
Wow.
was to use like social network to stay at people's home for free. And whenever we needed to basically stay longer, I would just work in exchange for accommodation. So yeah, we with my best friend we did that, and we traveled for like almost a year. I think we did more than 20 countries or 25 countries in total. So it was really really amazing experience.
Wow, that's cool. That's cool. And so you came back, and at what time did you say to yourself, "I want to be an entrepreneur. I'm thinking of building a company"? What was the moment, the tilting moment?
I think it's a mix of several feelings. I think like I knew from early days that I wanted to do business, but for my parents, business was not like a job. So it's like yeah, you should study science instead, and eventually, you know, at least you're gonna get a good education and a good job. But eventually, when I traveled, I knew that I wanted to get like the same level of freedom in my life. And for me, I think like launching and starting a business was what would allow me to get the same level of freedom. So when I got back to Paris, I basically said, okay, like I need to launch a business, but to launch a business, you need to be good at business. So let's go to a business school.
Wow, that's what you said definitely rings a bell, because my whole family are teachers, so fonctionnaire as well. And you know, it's the more I talk with entrepreneurs, and I have a lot of entrepreneurs friends and this podcast, and it's often about freedom, whatever freedom it is. You know, freedom of doing what you want, freedom of choice. It's not necessarily, you know, freedom of not working, because we work a lot. We work probably way more than other jobs, but it's a lot about this freedom of choice somehow. And a lot of different personalities, they need more security. So it's, I don't know, it's just interesting because it rings a bell in my family. It's a lot like that. And it's not a real job. I heard that all my life, you know. uh, and I started as a magician, can you imagine? So that was also a story. And so you went to business school. So how could you find, because I know this is a quite an expensive business school, but a great one. Did you have difficulty to finance that, or your parents helped you, and what did you learn there?
Yeah, so initially, like I wanted to take a loan for the school, because when you enter like HEC, like it's really easy for you to get loans. But before getting a loan, like my dad told me, like yeah, like it's we've been saving money a lot, and our goal has always to be like giving you a good education. So we're gonna basically pay like for 1 year. So they paid me like the school, and so yeah, I was very very grateful, like grateful for that. And I was studying marketing. So at the same time, when I studied marketing, I was also like I decided to launch my first business with my dad, so a t-shirt business. But it was like a huge fail.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I made like all the mistakes a young entrepreneur would do. But it was also like a great source of learnings, and it had allowed me later on to understand, you know, what was key in business, meaning finding customers.
So you go out of business schools, what happens?
So essentially, at that time, so after failing my first business with my dad, I had a friend from my same business school who asked me to join him on his new venture, which was essentially helping clients finding their new customers. So the idea was to start doing sales prospecting for many customers a bit worldwide, especially in B2B. So companies who are trying to look for other companies as customers or clients. So we started doing that, and it was actually really nice, because I knew that finding customers was a pain, and for me it was a great way, you know, to do this for other companies. So we worked, I think, with tens of companies worldwide. We generated like millions of dollars in revenue for them. And then eventually, because I was using a lot of tools and platform, I knew that there were like a market to essentially like start a platform my friend wanted to continue the agency, and I wanted to go into the software section. So I just said, okay, let's go. And I met François and Vianney, and we launched Lemlist in early 2018.
Wow. How did you meet them?
Actually, I was in Station F, which is the biggest startup incubator, and we were. They had actually their own software that they've been developing for like 2 years, and it was not working well. They couldn't get a salary out of it, etc. And they asked on the Station F Slack, so a big messaging system, if someone wanted to help them out for a side project for the community. And I was like, yeah, sure. I'm more like marketers or biz guys, so I'm going to help out. We worked on the landing page, started working on a side project together. The first project was essentially to help people meet, and because the incubator is huge. It's like almost, I think, a bit more maybe than 1,000 company. And it's difficult to meet with other people when you have so many companies. So we created a big directory of all the people based on what they were working on, their project, etc. So you can connect with people in similar industries than you do, and it was really good. It went well. So eventually, later on, we said, okay, let's start a real business together. We know that we can work together, so let's try it.
Yeah, that's really cool, and that's something I discovered last year. That from the exterior, it seems like you build the whole company with your own two hands and coded the whole thing. And in reality, most startups, especially tech companies, they're an aggregation of several people, and each of them are super important. And definitely from the exterior, I can imagine some people would say, oh, you came last, so it already existed, you didn't build it. But I definitely know that for a fact that it doesn't work like that. Those two people, I don't know how they were doing, but it often happens that they have some kind of product, but without the marketing, without the organization, without the business input, it would go nowhere. So it's great to see how things are co-created like that. I love
Yes,
to
especially like I mean, in that case, it was they had a product, but it was not making a lot of money. So that's why we decided to start from scratch, like a whole new project, which we called Lemlist in the early days. But it was for them, they had developed something like a chat, some sort of chatbot. But yeah, I think it's in any case, like a company, especially as you said in the tech side, it's always the work of many people, and it has to involve at least a biz guy and at least like one developer. Otherwise, it's I think it's tricky to grow a business.
Yeah, definitely. And I think sometimes it can put a pressure on young entrepreneurs or people who wants to be entrepreneur and think, oh, but I don't know anything about software. I don't know anything about the technique of, I'm not a coder. I'm not a developer. And it doesn't necessarily work like that. You can join some people, and the aggregation of skills and talent will make the company successful. So it's great that you tell us about that. And what were your main obstacles when you started? Because from the outside it seems very simple. I just found a couple of friends and make millions. I know it's not. So what are the main obstacles that you encountered?
So we launched in a very crowded market. So usually you have like two type of oceans. You have like blue oceans and red oceans. Red oceans mean you have tons of competitors, which was the case for us. What is nice, it means that the market already exists. So you have competitors, but you just need to be better. And when you launch and you start, obviously your product is not going to be better at first. So I would say that was a challenge. So I had to convince people that basically like our vision was to create the best platform ever, and that they could help us out. So it was really about building relationships, involving people, making them trust you. And to do that, it takes time. So it takes time to build your brand. It takes time to convince people. It takes time to reach out to them. So I used like a few tricks to get our few users without any money, because we launched the company with 1,000 euros, which was
Wow.
essentially like a 333 euros each.
Wow, that's crazy.
And eventually, like we needed to find ways to attract customers. So it was a lot of content, a lot of outbound. So I was using our own tool to acquire customers because I was really good at this, because I had done it for many clients, and at that time I knew how to find customers. And on top of it, I did, and I used a lot of communities on Facebook. So, for example, our target was like salespeople. So I would go on Facebook group with a lot of sales rep, and I would say, we have developed tools that allows you to get this type of results. And then I would put a screenshot of one of my best campaigns, and then I'll say, we have unique personalization feature. If you'd be interested in joining, just comment me. And the trick with that is a lot of people, obviously you're going to trigger their curiosity because they want to have the same results. So it allows them to show like the value of your product. Then at the same time, they are curious, so they're going to comment. And the more people comment, the more people are going to see the post. And eventually the more people comment again. So it gets a bit viral. And by using this simple trick that doesn't cost you anything, you can already get like thousands of not thousands, but at least hundreds of beta testers.
Yeah, it's a very good technique. I believe it. I'm not sure. I believe it doesn't work with all communities because a lot of groups that are closed, right? They say like, "Oh, no advertising on this group."
Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah,
when
you have
there
to
is,
find those who, yeah.
if it says like no advertising, then you have different ways to do it. So it's like,
Yeah,
if it
you
says
don't
no
say, "Hey,
advertising,
buy it." You say,
exactly.
"This I'm in sales as well. I got these results," right?
Yeah, exactly. Or you could say something like, I'm just starting my business and I'm looking for feedback. What would you think about this value prop, or something like that? And you start a conversation.
I like that. I like that. There is a lot of misunderstanding about sales and marketing, and the way you put it again is great. It's a lot. It's the way you say it. I wouldn't change anything. It's all about starting a conversation and not about, hey, here's my stuff, buy it. Because
Yeah, exactly.
that doesn't work. But it takes. I know it takes a lot of creativity, I would say, to yeah to think the way you thought, to say, I'm going to convince people we are going to be the best in a crowded market, because it doesn't, nothing is guaranteed. And at the day one, you're not super original, right? You just have a dream, and you bold, and you have the right mindset, and then you just there is some kind of a faith into the project you have. No.
Yeah, I think like, I mean, in the early days, if you don't believe in your project, no one will do, because all the person around you will make you doubt about your project. I mean, it's normal, because I think starting a business, especially if you start something new in a crowded industry, lots of people will have the same reaction, saying like, oh yeah, but there are already people doing the same thing or similar things, or how exactly are you different? And then people around you, like your family, your friends, are going to ask you the same question, like, when are you getting a salary? When are you getting paid? And all of these things put you a lot of pressure. But if you believe in your project, and if you believe in what you do, and that you're helping people, and that you're providing value, then I think everything becomes easier.
Yeah, it's well formulated. Thank you for that, because that you believe that you're going to help people to do certain things and that you bring value. I like that, because otherwise it's just like, yeah, I believe in what you do. It can be vague, and you go, okay, we heard it 1,000 times. And definitely it rings a bell. Now I want to go on the side of skeptical people. And there is something out there. I need to say it. I definitely don't think like that. But I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, you are 29 and you refuse 30 millions, and they're kind of frustrated because they might struggle to get where they want to go, or they just work super hard for a fraction of what you're worth today. And they might think, yeah, that's easy for this guy. So I'm interested to know, what would you say to those people, those imaginary people who said things like that? Oh yeah, it's easy for you. It seems easy from the exterior. You're 29, just build platform, make millions. And there's kind of feeling of it's unfair. What would you say to those people?
I think, to be honest, that I think you need to go like really, really down if you want to go really, really high. And for me, like entrepreneurship is a roller coaster. So you're gonna have highs and you're gonna have a lot of lows. What people see right now is obviously like just the tip of the iceberg. You know, is this is a success? This is $1 million. They see everything like this, and obviously, yeah, it's easy when you see like the end results. But what they don't see is the hours I spent working really hard. The first year where I didn't get any salary, I was living with my girlfriend at that time. She was paying the rent. It was like a 25-meter square apartment. We were almost killing each other every day because it was too small. I didn't have a lot of money, so I was basically eating pasta every day. All these type of things, you know, it's like people don't see the struggles. They don't see the fact that I even, you know, like stopped talking to my family because I was feeling too much pressure. That when my friends were earning a really good salary and were going to restaurants, I was saying, oh no, I already have like dinner plan. So basically just not to tell them that I don't have the money to pay for a restaurant and that I will just come later to have like one drink. All these type of things, you know, it's like what people don't see. And the question I have for them is, are you ready to make the same sacrifices? If the answer is yes, then start entrepreneurship. And if it's not, then they have their answer.
It's great. It's a great answer. And there is a lot of, how can I say that? It's a lot of mental frustrations, you know, little frustrations, and how you positioned. You know, you live with your girlfriend. It's all right. You live with you have an apartment, but it's not yours. And you see your friend who has theirs. You know, those kind of things. You go to the restaurant. It's all right. It doesn't matter. You're with your friend, but you don't have the freedom. We're talking about freedom to just have a normal dinner with them because you know,
I'm
there's
just
always
gonna take
this
a
thing at the
starter.
back. Yeah,
I'm not hungry.
with the bread I'm already full. No, yeah, it's I definitely agree with that. So thanks for saying it like that. I think it's great. And you also said that it's a lot about learning being an entrepreneur, right? And the lessons are super hard lessons. Usually you learn when you fail. You learn also when you win something, when you the quick wins, the victories, but mainly when you fail. And what is your experience with learning?
Yeah, I think like I learn new things every day, but I think that what really helped me learning like more and faster, it's by writing. So I write a lot of articles. I write a lot of posts a bit everywhere. And the thing is, like every time I learn something, if I put it in writing, at least you know it's set in stone. So I'm sure that on top of learning it, I will also be able, you know, to take the next steps because you know some people they're going to do mistakes several times just because they haven't learned that they haven't learned it yet. You know, it's like they don't understand that what they did was a mistake, and then you know they're going to repeat all the time the same things. But if you put it in writing, if you share it publicly and everything, I think it you know it's going to help you move forward. And for me, as soon as you change, you know, your mindset from it's not a mistake, it's a learning, then everything becomes easier. And I think like again, you know, when I was saying like you need to go down a lot so you can go really high afterwards, I truly believe it. And I think it's the same with mistakes. So sometimes you really need to fail hard. That way you will know, you know, like that you can basically wake up, stand up, and start working again.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Nothing to add to that. With that learning, how did you manage that growth in terms of management in your company? Because I guess you didn't have 35 people the day one.
Yeah.
It grew pretty fast, I guess.
Yeah.
How was the growth and how did you manage it as a CEO?
I think like the most important part when you want to manage people and when you want to work in a team is to remove your ego from all your business decision. So I think it's okay as a CEO to make mistakes, but I think it's normal and it's your duty to tell to people whenever you've done mistakes. Because if you can say to people in your team that you've screwed up and that you shouldn't have said something in particular, etc., at least you open a channel of communication that is without any filters. And getting feedback from the people around you so you can all improve is, in my opinion, the best way to grow.
Yeah, definitely. And not easy to do. I don't have 30 people that I managed, but the few people I have, I know it's definitely it rings a bell, the ego thing.
Yeah, it's
Definitely.
difficult.
It is hard, yeah, but it's the way, right?
Yeah, it's difficult, I think, because most people have been, when you grow up, we often associate the things you do with the person you are, which for me, I think can be dissociated, especially like in whenever you work. So for example, you can write a shitty article, but it doesn't mean that you're a shitty person. Those are two different things. But however, if I tell someone like your article is shit, obviously you're going to take it to yourself and you're going to say, associate this to, okay, I'm shit as well. So obviously, whenever you want to give feedback, you don't say this type of things,
Yeah.
but you try to do it like in a nicer way and explain, like be very specific, etc. But again, I think it's really important. And I think as a CEO, so as the manager, it's important to show that you can fail. Because if you show to people that you can fail and that it's not a fail, but it's a learning, and you keep that mindset, at least you're going to inspire people to be in the same mood as you are. And I often say, like, okay, yeah, I fucked up. This was wrong and I shouldn't have done it. What is the solution? And what should we do differently? If you switch your mindset from being problem focused of this is all the wrong things that I've done versus solution oriented, meaning, okay, how we can do better so we don't reproduce the exact same shit that we just did. From there, I think it's only like it's an infinite path to growth, essentially.
Definitely. Interesting. Makes me think a lot. I need to focus on the podcast, and now I'm thinking about my stuff as well. It's a good sign. It's a good sign. Now I know that you are working with your company remotely. Not only remote, but you have teams that are working in other countries. And so how do you manage that? Because I know there is a lot of advantages and also some things that are not that easy. Human needs interaction, and how do you respond to that for your employees?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we started like fully remote. Now we also have like an office in Paris, but I think our culture has been remote from day one. And the truth is, we work a lot based on the project, and we trust people. So whenever you're working from home, I think a lot of people experience it during like COVID, etc. But for us, it has always been like just a habit to take. So I think it depends on the type of people. But if you're well organized and very goal oriented, working remote is fine. And we just like hop on calls whenever we need to, are very flexible whenever people need, to chat or anything. And then we go from there.
And don't you think that do you organize team buildings and things so they can meet and know each other and be more, ultimately more performant together?
Yeah.
But do you organize such things? Or?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. That's something that's really, really important for us. So twice to three times a year, we organize like a team building. During COVID, it was a bit complex, but in
Of course, yeah.
last one was in October. Mid-October. We went for 10 days in Turkey with all the team. So we rented like a great hotel with everyone, and we spent 10 days together doing both like work, but also like nice activities. And as you said, like, I think having these moments where you can meet and greet and be with everyone, it's really the best way to create like strong bonds between everyone in the team.
Yeah, for sure.
And now we're going to organize the next one in June, I think.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's important. You cannot do like, we remote and then not see each other.
Exactly.
It's
No.
hard.
It's super important.
Yeah. Good to know. And so what are the processes? Because I know you're into those tools, of course. I know that you're using Notion. I saw that on your Instagram. And what are the processes and the agile tools, if I can say so, that you use? And how did you build processes in your company? I know it's a big question, but it's just for people to have an overview on how did you manage that?
I think it's important not to have too many tools, otherwise people get lost. So in Notion, for example, this is where everyone is managing like their to-dos, so what they need to do per week. We tend to have people focusing on project and having like clear KPIs, so key performance indicators for each project. Very specific example. Let's say that someone is going to manage a community. His KPI would be the number of people in the community, the growth per quarter, and this type of thing. And eventually, like on Notion, the truth is I like to be organized and I like to have like a big overview of things. So initially I was managing all the processes. And as we grew, now we have like our head of growth who is kind of like in transition to manage this. And yeah, we have everything like the devs, for example. So the developers, they also have like their own Notion, where essentially they're going to put all the tasks that they are working on. And then, you know, we have Slack for communication and Notion for teamwork, and where we can set up all the processes, have like, I would say like documents where you can really like go through how to use each tool, etc. So everything is very well detailed.
Wow, yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So do you use Slack as well?
Yeah, Slack is really good for messaging and even like getting in touch quickly with people.
Wow, really cool. Great. Thanks for sharing. So I know I took a lot of your time already. I have a few questions. I saw that you also develop your personal brand and tips also for entrepreneurs on Instagram as well and other platforms. We're going to talk about where we can find you. But what is next for you and what is next for Lemlist?
So basically, like my goal is to help 1 million entrepreneurs to launch a profitable business, because I want people to live on their own terms, have their freedom, just the way I experienced it. So my goal is to really push, so like my YouTube channel and also like my Instagram account, where I will share more tips, more insider's view of what we're doing at Lemlist, in order to really like help and also inspire people to launch themselves and start their own business, because it's overall it's really an amazing journey. I have also planned, you know, like to develop a bit more courses on how you can really acquire customers, how to build your online presence on LinkedIn.
I will buy that. I will be a customer. Put me on the list already.
And again, like, yeah, keep providing value to our users. So we have tons of things in our community, the Lemlist family, on Facebook, where we're going to do more live interview with really like top experts on each stage. And then for the product, we have really like a big roadmap on how to make it the best for our users. So it's really a mix of those two things, but it's really exciting.
So what is your goal for Lemlist? Are you gonna, in terms of growth for the next year, for example?
So we want to be at $10 million at the end of the year. So that's our goal for the year. And then in the next 3 years, I think our goal will be to get close to the $100 million annual recurring revenue. That's got to be a good challenge, but it's exciting also.
Really cool. So if you are going to give tips to entrepreneurs, of course, you need to give us at least 2-3 tips for our listeners, entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs who are listening to us. What can you tell them?
I think like one of the tips I would say, so there is one tip about reading. So I read a lot to learn because some books are really interesting, but something I would give you as a tip is like, we have by definition another bias when it comes to reading. We think, and because this is what we get taught at school, that when you start a book, you need to go from the beginning to the end. It doesn't really work like that. If you want to read a book, and just like check, just especially business books, check the chapters and just read the one that are interesting to you. Because if you just force yourself to read something, you're never going to learn things. So when I take a book, if I see that paragraphs are like super annoying, I just skip everything. I skip things that are not interesting, and then I go to the part that are interesting. That's a tip, because your time is essentially like the most valuable asset, and you can't waste time on just like part that don't interest you. Second tip that I would give is start doing something. It doesn't have to be perfect. So, for example, on LinkedIn, my first post, it got 1 like from my mom. You know, it was not crazy. Then
your mom is on LinkedIn. That's already a miracle.
Yeah, I asked her to create a profile. Now she deleted it. And essentially, like after like 6 months or a year, I was reaching millions of people every single month on LinkedIn with my post. So it's like, it takes time. It's a process. Nothing is perfect, but you have to start. You have to start somewhere. So that's like really, really important. And then a third tip, I would say, it's like invest in your personal growth. You can always learn new things. So for example, I had to learn like how to type better. So use all my fingers, because I wasn't using all my fingers. It has allowed me to be like a bit faster. I also learned how to do like speed reading. So reading with the finger, like, and I can read basically like 2 times faster that I used to read. All these type of things are things that you can implement to yourself and do. It's something called like we can call this kind of like all the biohacking and stuff like that. So how can you become like a better human at doing like the repetitive tasks that you do every time? And I think it can be helpful. So yeah, you should do it as well.
That's amazing, because it's the combinations of those tips will make some kind of a success. Some people think, oh, you wake up super early in the morning and you read faster and then you're going to become a great entrepreneur. It works for some reason, but in combination with those other things you said. So those tips are great. Definitely rings a bell. So tell us about just one book that left a mark in your mind.
Recently, a book that I liked, and I think I liked it just because, it reminds me of the ups and downs of the entrepreneur journey. It's called Lost and Founder from Rand Fishkin. I like it because it's easy to read and it's really like a personal story. So I love when people are sharing their entrepreneur journey, because it will just give you that insight and that message that you are not alone. So you will always experience like shitty moments. And I think when you know that other people experienced tons of shitty moments as well, it gives you hope and it gives you a boost of energy to just like go out there and keep moving forward.
Great. So talking about going out there, where can we find you? How can we connect with you, with Lemlist, with everything you do?
So I think like YouTube, if you want to watch videos, so YouTube is Guillaume Moubeche or Guillaume Moubeche on Instagram. And then my LinkedIn, if you want to message me, my profile is G, but I guess we can put like the link in the
I'm going to put all the
description.
links.
Awesome.
All right. And lemlist.com, something like that?
Yeah, lemlist.com for the website. Absolutely.
All right. We'll put all the links. So guys, I just remind you, you can find the Creativity podcast on SoundCloud, Apple and Google Podcast, Spotify, and YouTube. So share this episode if you liked it with friends or colleagues. And I want to thank from the bottom of my heart, Guillaume, who came and took the time for the Creativity podcast. Thank you so much, Guillaume.
Thanks, Botsy. I really had a great time.